You think you can lay your filthy hands on his mother, you useless black maid? Regina Ward's voice tore through the quiet afternoon like a dagger. Maya Williams, only 29 but with the calm composure of someone twice her age, was crouched low, her arms wrapped tightly around the frail frame of Mrs. Clara Calloway. The 78-year-old woman was trembling, her eyes wide with fear. Regina's stiletto heel connected with Maya's hip in a vicious kick. "Get your hands off her, you meddling piece of trash!" She spat, voice dripping venom. "This is not your business. Do you hear me? Not your business." "Please, stop," Maya cried, her voice breaking. "She's in pain, please. Don't hurt her anymore. She's your fiancé's mother. Please, think of her heart." But Regina only laughed, a sound that felt like nails on glass. "Look at you, pretending to be some kind of hero. You're nothing but a servant. Stay in your place." She grabbed a silver tray from the sideboard and hurled it across the room. It clanged against the far wall, just missing Maya's head. Maya flinched but did not let go of Clara. "Mrs. Calloway," she whispered urgently. "I've got you. Breathe. Please breathe." Clara's thin hands clutched at Maya's sleeve, but her lips moved soundlessly. "Let her go," Regina shrieked again. "You're hurting her. Ethan, Ethan, help!" From the archway, a voice boomed, low and controlled. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan Calloway stood framed by the doorway, 6'2", immaculate in a navy suit, his storm-gray eyes widening at the sight. His mother hunched over, his fiancée trembling theatrically, and his black maid crouched, arms wrapped around Clara. Regina whirled toward him, her face pale but her eyes glittering with calculation. "Ethan, thank God. I tried to stop her, but she snapped. She shoved your mother. I couldn't get her off." "That's not true." Maya's voice was hoarse. She looked up, eyes glistening with tears. "I was trying to protect her. She was about to—" "Shut up!" Regina screamed, pointing a manicured finger at Maya. "You think you can waltz in here and play savior? You think anyone's going to believe you?" She turned back to Ethan, voice quivering. "She's dangerous. Look at her, look at my arm." She clutched her own elbow, though no mark was there. Ethan's jaw clenched. He took a step closer, eyes fixed on Maya. "Get away from my mother." Maya's heart plummeted. "Sir, please listen to me. I said, get away." Ethan barked, his voice sharp enough to slice the air. Regina gasped as if in relief. "Thank you, finally. She was scaring me to death." Maya gently shifted Clara against the armrest of the chaise, hands trembling. "Mrs. Calloway needs a doctor. Please, Ethan. Don't—" "I trusted you," Ethan muttered, more to himself than anyone. His mother, silent and pale, reached out a shaking hand toward Maya, but Ethan didn't notice. "You're fired," he said flatly. "Pack your things and leave. Now." Maya's lips parted, a single breath of protest rising, but she swallowed it. She had seen this before when truth collided with power. Power always spoke louder. She stood slowly, straightening her uniform. "I was only trying to help," she whispered. Regina stepped closer, voice low but still cutting. "Get out before I call the police. You've done enough." Maya glanced once more at Clara's stricken face, then at Ethan's cold eyes. "Please," she said softly, "don't let her be alone with her again." No one answered. She turned and walked out, past Regina's satisfied smirk, past the marble foyer where the shards of china glinted like broken promises. Outside, rain began to fall, cool and steady. Her old Ford Escort waited at the end of the drive. Maya gripped her duffel tighter and kept walking, her back straight even as her heart cracked. Inside, Ethan knelt by his mother, helping her to a chair. "Are you all right?" he asked, voice softening. Clara looked past him toward the door where Maya had gone, eyes full of something like despair. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Behind Ethan, Regina hovered, her tone perfectly pitched. "She's unstable, Ethan. I told you something wasn't right. Thank God you came when you did." Ethan said nothing. He stared at the floor, at the glint of shattered porcelain, at the image burned into his mind, his mother in the maid's arms, his fiancée crying, and a story that didn't yet make sense. But for now, he let the lie stand. And outside, In the rain, the only person who had truly protected his mother was driving away, carrying the weight of a crime she hadn't committed. The rain hadn't stopped since Maya left the Calloway estate. It fell in heavy sheets that blurred the road ahead, the wipers of her old Ford working frantically to keep up. Her uniform was still damp, where Regina's heel had struck her, a dull ache pulsing with each movement. The words still echoed in her mind, useless black maid. She had heard it before, just never from someone standing beside crystal chandeliers and million-dollar art. She pulled into a gas station on the outskirts of Charleston, its single neon sign buzzing like an anxious insect. Inside the convenience store, a young cashier in a hoodie barely looked up. Maya poured herself a cup of burnt coffee, added too much sugar, and paid with the last crumpled 5 in her pocket. When she stepped outside, the rain had softened to a drizzle, and she sat in her car for a long time before turning the key. Her reflection in the rearview mirror was tired but unbroken. She whispered to herself, "You did what was right, but it didn't feel right." Doing right never seemed to pay. A flash of lightning illuminated her hands, still trembling, and she tightened her grip on the wheel. The Ford sputtered back to life. She drove until she found the small roadside inn she remembered from her nursing days, Whisper Pines Lodge, the same one where traveling nurses stayed between shifts. The woman at the front desk, an older lady with a smoker's rasp, squinted at her. "One night or more?" "1 night," Maya said softly. 45 cash. No smoking, no parties, and don't complain about the heater." "Understood." The room smelled faintly of old carpet and rain. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her duffel at her feet. She pulled out a small notebook, the one she'd started after her mother's funeral, and began to write. Her handwriting wavered with exhaustion. "I lost another job today. Not because of what I did, but because of what I am. Still, I'd do it again." I couldn't let her hurt that old woman. She closed the notebook and reached into the pocket of her jacket. There, wrapped in tissue paper, was the silver hairpin Clara had given her 2 weeks earlier. "For luck," the old woman had said, smiling faintly. Maya held it now, feeling its cold edges, and wondered if Clara was all right. Across town, the Calloway mansion was silent. Ethan stood in the hallway outside his mother's room, hands deep in his pockets, watching the steady rhythm of her breathing. The doctor had come and gone, assuring him that the bruises were minor, the shock manageable. "She just needs rest," the doctor had said. Regina hovered by the window, arms crossed, her silk robe glowing faintly in the lamplight. "You see why I didn't want that woman here, Ethan. She was unstable. The way she clung to your mother, it wasn't normal." Ethan turned. "She's been nothing but kind to my mother for months. What could possibly make her snap like that?" Regina's expression hardened just enough to show through the mask of sympathy. "People like her. They hold grudges. Maybe she thought your mother didn't respect her. You know how they get when they feel small." "People like her?" His tone was quiet but edged. She blinked. "You know what I mean. She wasn't like us." He studied her face for a long moment, then turned away. "I'm going to check on my mother." Regina's voice followed him, sweet again. "Of course, darling. I'll make you some tea." In the guest room, Clara lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her ribs ached, but that wasn't what hurt. What hurt was the look in her son's eyes, the same disbelief she'd seen when his father walked out years ago. He'd always believed too quickly in beautiful lies. "Maya," she whispered softly, the name catching in her throat. She tried to sit up but winced. A faint tapping at the door made her pause. Linda, the head housekeeper, entered quietly with a tray. "I brought you soup, Mrs. Calloway." "Thank you, Linda." Linda hesitated, then said in a low voice, "I don't believe she did it, ma'am." Clara's eyes filled. "Neither do I. She cared for you like family," Linda continued. "That's not something you can fake." Clara reached for Linda's hand, gripping it weakly. "Will you do something for me? If you hear from her, Maya, please tell her. I'm sorry she had to take the blame." Linda nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, ma'am." In the kitchen downstairs, Regina stirred her tea, the spoon clinking softly against the porcelain. She was smiling. The next morning, Maya sat in the small diner beside the inn, her coffee untouched. The waitress, a plump woman with kind eyes, noticed her hesitation and asked, "You all right, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." Maya gave a tired smile. "Just a bad day at work." The woman chuckled. "Ain't that the truth? Want some pie? On the house." She accepted. The cherry pie was warm, the crust flaky, the sugar melting into comfort she hadn't known she needed. When she finished, she left a note under the saucer. "Thank you for the kindness. I'll pay it forward when I can." Back at her room, she began to draft a letter addressed to Mr. Ethan Calloway. The first lines came slowly. "Sir, I know you don't owe me an explanation, and perhaps I don't deserve one. But please know I never meant harm. Your mother's safety was all I cared about. I wish you could have seen what really happened." She folded the letter neatly, placed it inside an envelope, and hesitated. Something inside her said sending it wouldn't matter. Men like Ethan lived in a world where apologies came with signatures and seals, not with truth. Still, she slipped the letter into her bag. As night settled again, she stepped outside the motel room and looked at the sky. The rain had stopped. The air smelled of wet asphalt and pine. Somewhere in the distance, a train whistle moaned a lonely sound that stretched across miles of darkness. She whispered to herself, "One day, they'll know." And miles away, in the mansion she had left behind, Ethan stood alone in his study, the rain streaking the tall windows. He looked at the broken teacup on his desk, the one he had ordered saved from the cleanup, its porcelain glued back together though the cracks still showed. He turned it in his hands, whispering to no one. "Why would she hurt you, Mother? Why would anyone?" But in the back of his mind, a quiet doubt stirred one that wouldn't leave him alone. The next morning broke through gray clouds, light spilling reluctantly across the manicured lawns of the Calloway estate. From the outside, nothing looked disturbed, no trace of the chaos that had filled its grand halls the day before. But inside, silence carried weight, the kind that presses down on a house after something unforgivable has been said. Ethan stood by the window of his study, coffee cooling on his desk. He hadn't slept. The image of Maya's face haunted him, the shock in her eyes, the way her body shielded his mother's. He wanted to dismiss it, to believe what he saw had been simple and clear, but the memory refused to settle neatly. Something about it gnawed at him. Regina appeared in the doorway, wrapped in a silk robe the color of pale champagne. Her hair was immaculate, her expression soft and calculated. "You've been in here all night," she said gently. "You're torturing yourself, Ethan. You saw what she did." He rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Did I? Or did I just walk into the middle of something I didn't understand?" Regina's voice trembled on cue. "You think I would lie about something like that? After everything?" She stepped closer, letting the robe slip just enough from her shoulder to reveal vulnerability. "She was dangerous. She could have hurt your mother, hurt us." Ethan looked up, eyes cold but uncertain. "You said she shoved you?" "Yes." "Then where's the bruise?" For the first time, Regina faltered. "You think I made that up?" He sighed, leaning back in the chair. "I'm just trying to make sense of it." Regina's tone sharpened, the sweetness thinning. "Sense of it?" "Ethan, that woman was a problem from day one. Always watching. Always interfering. You didn't see the way she looked at me. Like she was judging me. Like she thought she was better." Ethan didn't respond. He picked up his cup, took a sip, and stared into the dark swirl of his coffee. "She came highly recommended. My mother liked her." Regina scoffed softly. "Your mother likes anyone who reminds her of herself, soft, spoken, obedient. It's why she doesn't understand me." "That's not true," he said quietly. Regina turned sharply, frustration flashing through the mask. "You think your mother likes me?" "Ethan, she barely tolerates me. Every time I walk into a room, she looks at me like I'm stealing something." He glanced toward the hallway where his mother's room lay beyond. "Maybe because she's afraid she is." Regina's breath caught, and for a moment, her real self slipped through the cold, dangerous self beneath the diamond ring. "You better be careful," she whispered. "You start doubting me now, you'll regret it." Then, with a delicate smile, she added, "Breakfast will be ready soon." She turned and left, her perfume lingering behind like smoke. Ethan stared after her, jaw tightening. In her upstairs bedroom, Clara Calloway sat propped against her pillows, her silver hair gathered in a bun. Her breathing was steady again, but her hands trembled slightly as she turned the pages of her worn prayer book. When Linda, the head housekeeper, entered, Clara looked up. "Did you find her?" Clara asked softly. Linda shook her head. "No, ma'am. She left no address. I tried calling the number she gave the agency, but it's been disconnected." Clara's eyes dimmed. She was a good girl. She didn't deserve this. Linda hesitated. "Mr. Ethan believes Miss Regina's version of things. At least for now." Clara closed the book. "My son always wanted to see the best in people, even when they showed him the worst." Linda hesitated, then lowered her voice. "Do you want me to tell him what I saw?" "No." Clara's tone was gentle but firm. "Not yet. He wouldn't believe it coming from you. Or from me. He needs to see it for himself. And if he doesn't?" Clara looked toward the window where rain streaked down the glass again. "Then the truth will find another way." Later that morning, Ethan drove into the city to meet his attorney. The meeting was routine, a review of property contracts, but his mind kept drifting. At a red light, he caught his reflection in the car window and barely recognized the man staring back. He was successful, powerful, respected, and utterly unsure of his own judgment. His phone buzzed. A text from Regina. "Dinner tonight. 7 sharp. Wear something that says you're mine." He set the phone face down on the console. The possessiveness in her tone, once flattering, now grated. Back at the Whisper Pines Lodge, Maya sat at a small desk in her room, typing on an aging laptop she'd borrowed from the front office. The rain outside softened to a steady rhythm, the kind that always lulled her into focus. She was updating her resume, though her heart wasn't in it. Every word she typed felt like a lie. How do you summarize loyalty? How do you describe compassion when it's the very thing that got you fired? Her phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "This is Linda. Mrs. Calloway's resting. She asked me to tell you she's sorry." Maya's throat tightened. She stared at the message for a long time before replying. "Tell her she has nothing to be sorry for." She closed the laptop and lay back on the bed. The roof leaked slightly, a slow drip near the window. She placed a mug beneath it and listened. She thought of Clara's trembling hands, of the fear in her eyes, and of Ethan's expression how quickly trust had turned to anger. Hours passed before sleep claimed her. That night, in the Calloway mansion, Regina poured herself a glass of wine and scrolled through her phone. Her reflection smirked back at her from the black screen. She had won again. Until she didn't, because upstairs, in the quiet of Clara Calloway's room, a faint red light blinked from a forgotten camera tucked high in the corner, one of the new security devices Ethan had installed months earlier. After reading about a string of robberies in Charleston's wealthiest homes, he had forgotten about it. So had Regina, but it hadn't forgotten about them. It had seen everything, and while the mansion slept, its tiny lens recorded over the events of the day, frame by frame, truth waiting patiently for the moment it would be needed. The next sunrise found Ethan sitting alone in his office, the blinds half drawn, the light cutting sharp angles across his face. He hadn't gone to bed after returning from the city. The coffee on his desk was cold, untouched. On the wall opposite him hung a portrait of his mother painted 20 years earlier, Clara in her nurse's uniform. Her smile soft, her eyes calm. He looked at it now, and saw the bruise on her wrist instead. He replayed the scene again and again. Maya on the floor, his mother trembling, Regina's voice shrill with panic. He had reacted out of instinct, but whose instinct had it been, his or Regina's? He didn't like the answer. A knock came at the door. "Come in," he said, voice hoarse. Linda stepped inside, holding a tray with breakfast. "Mrs. Calloway wanted to have breakfast upstairs. I thought you might like some too." He nodded absently, staring at the eggs growing cold on the porcelain plate. "How is she?" "Resting, sir. Quiet. She keeps asking about Maya." The sound of the name hit him harder than he expected. "Maya?" "Yes, sir. She wanted to know if Miss Williams found another position yet." He frowned. "Why would she ask that?" Linda hesitated. "Because she believes the girl meant her no harm." Ethan's gaze sharpened. "You believe that too?" Linda set down the tray. "Sir, I've worked for this family 22 years. I know people's hearts better than their words. Maya would never raise a hand against your mother. Not in anger. Then why did she look guilty? He asked quietly. She looked frightened. Linda corrected gently. There's a difference. He had no reply. When she left, the house fell back into silence, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Across the estate, Regina was dressing for a brunch interview with a lifestyle magazine. She stood before her mirror, adjusting the diamond pendant Ethan had given her. The reflection pleased her, poised, delicate, unblemished. Perfect, she whispered. Yet beneath the surface, nerves fluttered. She'd noticed Ethan's distance, the way he avoided her gaze. She would have to fix that before it grew into something dangerous. At the mansion gates, a courier dropped off a small padded envelope addressed to Ethan. Inside was a folded letter in familiar handwriting. Elegant, careful, restrained. Dear Mr. Calloway, it began. I know I have no right to contact you. I only wish to assure you that Mrs. Calloway's well-being was always my only concern. I hope one day you'll understand why I couldn't stay silent. The envelope also contained a silver hairpin, his mother's. Ethan stared at it for a long time. How had she gotten it? Or had his mother given it to her? He placed the hairpin on his desk and leaned back, exhaling slowly. That evening, the Calloway house hosted a small dinner, just Ethan, Regina, and Clara. The meal was quiet, the air thick with things unsaid. Clara ate little. Regina filled the silence with chatter about guest lists and gala events, as if nothing unpleasant had ever happened. At one point, Ethan looked up. Mother, he said, about the other day, do you remember exactly what happened? Clara's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Regina tensed but smiled quickly. Darling, let's not bring that up again. Your mother doesn't need the stress. But Ethan waited. Clara set her fork down carefully. I remember voices, she said softly. I remember falling. And I remember Maya holding me. Regina's smile froze. Yes, after what? Ethan interrupted, his tone steady. Because the doctor said the bruises on her shoulder came from a sharp grip. Not a fall. Clara met his eyes. Sometimes people hold on too tightly when they're scared. Ethan nodded slowly, understanding that his mother was trying to protect someone and not Regina. After dinner, he walked her to her room. Mother, he said quietly, do you trust Regina? She looked at him for a long moment before answering. I trust that people always show you who they are if you stop telling yourself who you want them to be. He kissed her forehead. Rest, Mom. Downstairs, Regina poured 2 glasses of wine and met him in the parlor. You're quiet tonight, she said lightly. I have a lot on my mind. About her again? The edge in her voice was sharp now. He didn't deny it. I keep thinking maybe I made a mistake. Regina laughed softly, a sound like broken glass wrapped in velvet. Oh, Ethan, you're too kind for your own good. Some people use that against you. She moved closer, placing her hand on his chest. Let me take care of you. Forget about her. Her perfume was overwhelming, but beneath it, something felt off like counterfeit sweetness. He stepped back. Good night, Regina. She stood frozen as he walked upstairs, her expression hardening the moment his back was turned. Fine, she whispered to the empty room. If you want to doubt me, I'll make sure you never doubt again. Later, Ethan sat in his mother's study. It still smelled faintly of lavender and old books. On the desk sat her favorite porcelain vase, a relic from his childhood. He traced its curved surface, remembering how she used to save every broken piece of their lives and glue it back together, saying, cracks make room for light. He thought of the shattered teacup, the look in Maya's eyes, the fear that had crossed his mother's face before he entered the room. Maybe the cracks he'd been ignoring were finally showing him the truth. He reached for the house security system tablet on the wall. It had been updated months ago, but he'd never bothered to check the recordings. He typed in his password and began to scroll. Most of the cameras displayed the usual still frames, the garden, the foyer, the main hallway, but one thumbnail caught his eye. Library. Auto backup enabled. He frowned. That was where the confrontation had taken place. The file was large, time-stamped the same day Maya left. He pressed play. The footage flickered to life. His mother seated with a book, Regina pacing, her voice faint but audible. "You think your son will still care when I'm done with you?" The sound of a crash, the teacup. Then Maya's voice, "Please stop. She's not well." Ethan's hand went cold. He watched until the end, until he heard his own footsteps entering the frame, his own voice shouting, his mother's silent tears. He stopped the video and sat back, heart pounding. Every piece of it had been there. Waiting. Upstairs, Clara stirred in her sleep as if sensing the shift. And downstairs, Ethan Calloway finally saw himself clearly in the mirror of regret, in the reflection of a truth he could no longer unsee. The late afternoon sun filtered through thin motel curtains, throwing faded orange bars across Maya's face. She had barely slept the night before. Her dreams came in flashes, Clara's fragile hands clutching at her sleeve, Regina's heel driving into her side, Ethan's voice cold as steel. She woke gasping, as if dragged from underwater. At the Whisper Pines Lodge, morning started with the hum of vending machines and the smell of reheated coffee drifting from the small lobby. Maya sat at the narrow desk by the window, staring at the letter she had written but never mailed. "Your mother's well-being was my only concern." The words felt small compared to the storm inside her. She folded it back into the envelope and set it aside. A knock sounded on her door. "Housekeeping," a woman's voice called. Maya opened it to find a gray-haired woman with kind blue eyes and a slow smile. Her name tag read Mrs. Grace Turner. "Oh, you're the nurse who checked in the other night, right?" Maya nodded. "Used to be, not anymore." Grace gave a sympathetic chuckle. "Used to be a teacher myself. Used to think kids listened too." She paused, looking at Maya's tired face. "You want to talk about it? I don't think it would help." "Sometimes it does," Grace said, leaning her mop against the wall. "Sometimes saying it out loud is the only way to keep it from eating you alive." Maya hesitated, then motioned her inside. "I worked for a family rich, powerful. Their mother's elderly, sweet, fragile. I tried to protect her. But," she exhaled, "they believed the wrong person." Grace frowned. "You mean they fired you?" "Fired me, accused me. I'm lucky they didn't call the police." Grace shook her head. "People with money forget they bleed the same color." Maya gave a small, grateful smile. "You sound like my mother." "What happened to her?" "She passed away 3 years ago." Maya's gaze drifted to the silver hairpin on the table. "She used to tell me, you can't choose what the world calls you, but you can choose who you answer to." I thought I understood that. Grace reached out, squeezing Maya's hand. "Maybe now you really do." Later that evening, Maya walked to the diner across the street, a modest place called Betty's Corner Grill. It was the kind of spot where the waitresses called everyone sweetheart, and the jukebox still took quarters. She sat in the far booth, ordered tomato soup and cornbread, and let the hum of conversation settle around her like a blanket. At the next table, 2 older men discussed the local news. "You hear about that Calloway mess? His fiancée is going to be on the cover of Southern Living. Can you imagine?" "Yeah," the other said, chuckling. "Money buys forgiveness faster than God ever could." Maya's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. She lowered her gaze and forced herself to breathe. The world had already decided whose side it was on. When the waitress refilled her coffee, Maya asked quietly, "You ever meet someone who just takes everything from you with a smile?" The waitress laughed. "Honey, I was married twice." That night, back in her room, Maya found herself pacing. Her ribs still hurt from Regina's kick, and she pressed a hand to her side as she walked. On the nightstand lay her worn Bible, the same one she had carried since her mother's funeral. She opened it to a page she knew by heart. "And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." She whispered, "Then let the truth find me." The motel was quiet except for the drip in the ceiling. She turned on her old laptop, the one with cracked hinges and missing keys. The memory card from her uniform's front pocket slid into the port with a soft click. She hadn't remembered putting it there. Maybe it had fallen from Clara's bedside camera weeks ago. Maybe fate had dropped it. She waited as the folder opened. There were short clips, mostly routine housekeeping shots. but one file stood out, dated the afternoon of the incident. Her heart raced. She clicked play. The video began in Clara's sitting room. Regina's voice came first, sharp and mocking. "You think your son loves you because he needs you? He's marrying me, not you." Then Clara's quiet reply, "You don't belong in this house if you can't show respect." The image shook as if the camera had been bumped. Then a blur of movement, Regina stepping forward, Clara stumbling back, the teacup flying. Maya appeared in frame seconds later, catching the older woman before she hit the ground. "Please don't," Maya's voice cried from the speaker. "She's not well. Stop this." Regina's reply cut through. "Get your filthy hands off her, you stupid maid." Then the kick, the cry, the chaos until the door opened and Ethan entered. Maya stopped the video, her hand over her mouth. Her whole body trembled. "Oh, dear God," she whispered. She copied the footage to a flash drive, then unplugged the laptop. Her first instinct was to send it to Ethan, but another part of her hesitated. He hadn't listened before. Why would he now? Still, it wasn't about him anymore. It was about Mrs. Calloway, about clearing her own name. She would send it anonymously, through the only person she trusted, Linda. She wrote a note by hand. "This is what really happened. For Mrs. Calloway's sake, please show him." At dawn, Maya walked to the post office 2 blocks away, her coat pulled tight against the chill. She mailed the small brown envelope and watched as it disappeared down the chute. For the first time in days, her chest loosened. Back at the estate, the same dawn spilled pale light through Ethan's windows. He stood by the kitchen counter, watching coffee drip slowly into the pot. He'd spent the night replaying the security footage he'd discovered, feeling every word, every scream like a blade. He hadn't shown it to Regina yet. He wanted to see how far she'd go. When she entered the kitchen, dressed in silk and false warmth, he handed her a cup. "Morning." She smiled sweetly. "Morning, love. Did you sleep?" "Not much." Her eyes flicked toward his laptop on the counter. "Working already?" "Something like that." As she poured sugar into her cup, Ethan studied her. Every gesture, every breath felt rehearsed. The image on the screen behind him paused at the moment her hand shoved his mother's shoulder was still burned into his mind. "Regina," he said softly. "Yes, darling." He met her eyes. "If you ever lie to me again, you won't have to worry about losing your reputation. You'll have to worry about losing yourself." She blinked, the smile faltering for the first time. "What are you talking about?" He didn't answer. He just took his coffee and walked away, leaving her standing in the kitchen, the mask cracking at its edges. Outside, the morning wind stirred the rose bushes along the front path. The petals fluttered, soft and silent like tiny fragments of something breaking, something about to change forever. Rain swept through Charleston again, steady and cold, washing over the streets like a quiet penance. Maya stood under the small awning outside the post office, watching the storm gather strength. The envelope was already gone on its way to the Calloway estate. Her hands were still shaking, not from the cold but from the weight of what she had done. For the first time since the day she was fired, she had hope, but it was a fragile, trembling thing, as fragile as the paper that now carried her truth. She returned to the Whisper Pines Lodge, her hair damp, coat clinging to her shoulders. Inside, Mrs. Grace Turner waved from behind the front desk. "Morning, sweetheart. You look like you went swimming with your clothes on." Maya gave a faint smile. "You could say that." Grace chuckled, handing her a towel. "Whatever you mailed off this morning, I hope it's worth the postage." Maya paused, startled. "How did you?" "I've been working this counter 30 years, Grace said. "I can tell a reckoning when I see one walk out my door." Maya smiled for real this time. "Maybe it's time someone saw the truth." "Good," Grace said. "Truth's a stubborn thing, it don't die easy, even when people bury it." Back at the mansion, the world was anything but quiet. The morning mail had arrived, and among the invoices and glossy invitations sat a small brown envelope addressed in neat handwriting. To Mr. Ethan Calloway, personal and confidential. The butler set it on the silver tray with the rest, unaware that it carried the key to everything. Ethan found it hours later, After a restless afternoon of phone calls and meetings he couldn't remember. The name on the back, M. Williams, stopped him cold. His pulse quickened as he slid his finger under the flap and pulled out a folded note. The handwriting was unmistakable. This is not about forgiveness. It's about truth. For your mother's sake, please watch what's inside. I don't want revenge. I just want peace. A flash drive was taped to the bottom of the page. He held it for a long moment, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. Upstairs, Regina was on a video call with a journalist, laughing too loudly about her upcoming foundation gala. "We'll have over 200 guests," she was saying, her voice honey-sweet. "It's not just about philanthropy, it's about vision, legacy, and compassion." Ethan shut his study door and plugged the flash drive into his computer. The file loaded immediately, one single clip. Library. Security. 4. MP. 4. He clicked play. The room filled with sound. His mother's quiet voice, shaking but firm. Regina's sharp retorts. The crash of porcelain. Then Maya's voice pleading, desperate, human. "Please stop, she's not well." Then the words he'd heard once before, now impossible to forget. "You think you can lay your filthy hands on his mother? You useless black maid." Ethan froze. The next moment showed it all: Regina's kick, Maya shielding his mother, the look of horror when he entered the room. His stomach twisted. The truth hit like a fist to the chest. He turned off the monitor and leaned back in his chair, gripping the armrests to steady himself. His breathing came in sharp, uneven bursts. "Dear God," he whispered. He pressed play again, watched it twice, 3 times. Each replay felt like another crack forming in the life he thought he understood. Footsteps sounded in the hallway light, quick, practiced. Regina appeared at the door, smiling. "There you are. I was wondering where you disappeared to." Ethan turned the monitor off just in time. "Working," he said. His voice sounded foreign. "Working?" she repeated, teasing. "Or hiding?" He managed a smile. "Maybe both." She sauntered in, her perfume trailing like smoke. "You missed my interview. They asked about you, about us." She placed her hands on his shoulders, leaning in. "You should have been there." He didn't move. "Maybe I should have." Regina circled to face him. "You look pale. Is everything all right?" "Fine," he said quietly. "You're lying." Her tone was playful but probing. "What are you hiding, Ethan?" He looked up at her, eyes unreadable. "Do you really want me to answer that?" Something flickered in her expression, a crack. Brief but telling. She laughed too quickly, covering it. "You're impossible." As she left, he exhaled slowly, the mask slipping from his face. He turned the monitor back on and watched the last seconds of the video, Maya's face as she looked toward the door. Her expression a mix of fear and dignity. He felt the burn of shame crawl up his throat. Later that evening, he walked into his mother's room. Clara sat by the window, wrapped in a shawl, her eyes reflecting the golden hour sunlight. She looked peaceful, though her face bore the faint bruises that the camera had captured so clearly. "Mother," he said softly. She turned, smiling faintly. "You look like your father when you're troubled. I have something to tell you." "I know," she said simply. He blinked. "You know? I knew the moment you stopped believing your own anger." He sat beside her. "I saw the recording." She nodded. "Then you finally see people as they are." He swallowed. "I believed her. I fired someone who protected you. I humiliated her." Clara's voice was gentle but firm. "You were blind, Ethan. We all are sometimes. What matters is what you do once you can see again." He nodded, eyes wet. "I'm going to make it right. I believe you will." That night, Ethan sat in his study again, staring at the flash drive on the desk. He picked up his phone, opened a blank email, and began to type. "Maya, it's Ethan. I've seen the truth. Please come back. I need to speak with you." He hesitated before hitting send. Maybe she wouldn't answer. Maybe she'd never forgive him. But for the first time, he didn't care about forgiveness, he cared about justice. Miles away, in her small motel room, Maya sat on her bed reading a worn paperback. Her phone buzzed. She looked down, saw his name, and froze. She didn't open it right away. She just stared at the screen until the light dimmed. Outside, the rain slowed to a drizzle, tapping softly against the window like a heartbeat steady, patient, alive. The storm had begun to quiet, but neither of them knew that it was only just beginning. The morning sun rose reluctantly, draping the Charleston sky in streaks of gray and rose gold. Inside the Calloway mansion, the light slipped through tall windows, cutting across Ethan's study and catching the edge of the silver flash drive still lying on his desk. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it the moment Regina's heel struck, the way Maya's body took the blow meant for his mother. The truth was no longer a question. It was a wound that refused to close. He poured himself another coffee, black and bitter, and pressed play again. The footage flickered on the monitor, its timestamp a brutal reminder that truth often hides in plain sight. He forced himself to watch every frame, his jaw tight, his pulse uneven. At the final image, Maya looking toward the doorway, pleading for someone to see, he froze the screen. The word sorry slipped from his lips before he realized he'd spoken. A soft knock startled him. "Ethan?" Regina's voice drifted through the door, silky but cautious. He didn't answer. After a pause, the handle turned and she appeared, dressed impeccably in cream and pearls, the picture of composure. "You've been in here since dawn. What's wrong?" He didn't look up. "Just working." "Nah." She stepped closer, tilting her head with practiced concern. "You've been distant lately. Is this about that girl again?" Ethan's eyes lifted, cool and unreadable. "Her name is Maya." Regina blinked. "I see. So you're still thinking about the woman who attacked your mother." He took a long breath, setting his coffee aside. "Funny thing about truth, it doesn't care what we think it is. It just waits until we're brave enough to see it." Regina's smile stiffened. "What's that supposed to mean?" He stood, crossing the room to the window. "It means I know what happened that day." Her heartbeat faltered just enough for him to notice. "You're mistaken," she said quickly. "You heard what she said to me. You saw. I saw what you wanted me to see." He turned, eyes sharp now. "But there's something you didn't know. The house cameras in the library were on." Her face went pale. For a moment, all the grace drained from her expression. "You're bluffing." "Duh. Am I?" Ethan's voice was quiet, deadly calm. He reached for the flash drive on his desk and held it up. "I watched it, Regina. Every word, every movement." She took a step back. "You can't prove anything. That video could have been edited. You don't know who sent it." "I know enough." He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You kicked my mother. You humiliated the one person in this house who actually had a soul, and then you let me destroy her life to protect yours." "No." Regina's mask cracked. "Do you think anyone will believe you over me?" she hissed. "You'll destroy your reputation, your company, everything." He stared at her, eyes like steel. Maybe that's what it takes to make things right. The silence stretched between them like a drawn bow. Finally, Regina forced a smile, too wide to be sincere. "You won't do it. You're not that kind of man." Ethan met her gaze. "No, I wasn't, but you made me one." Without another word, he pocketed the flash drive and walked out. Regina stood motionless, trembling with fury. He drove straight to his mother's nursing suite. Clara was awake, knitting by the window. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "You've got that look again," she said. "The one you had when you were 12 and broke the neighbor's window." Ethan chuckled softly. "I broke more than a window this time, Mom." He pulled a chair close. "I need to tell you something." She set her knitting aside. "I already know, darling." He frowned. "You do?" Clara nodded. "I saw the way you looked at her funeral portrait. I'm not talking about Dad." "I know," she said gently. "You finally saw the truth about that girl, about Maya." Ethan lowered his gaze. "I was wrong. I let a liar turn me against someone who was protecting you." Clara reached across the armrest, placing a trembling hand on his. "We all believe lies when they come wrapped in love, Ethan. But love without honesty is just vanity in a prettier dress." He smiled sadly. "You always did know how to make a sermon sound like advice." "I was a nurse for 40 years, she said. "I've seen people bleed out because pride made them wait too long to admit they were hurt." He squeezed her hand. "Then I'd better start admitting things." Across town, In her small motel room, Maya sat by the window, watching a storm build again over the trees. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated before answering. "Maya Williams? This is Ethan Calloway." Her throat tightened. "Mr. Calloway." There was a pause, the kind that stretches when both people have too much to say and too little courage. "I received your letter," he said quietly. "And the video." Maya's heart skipped. "Then you know." "I do, and I don't have words for how sorry I am." His voice cracked slightly. "You saved my mother. I should have seen it. I should have protected you instead." She swallowed. "It's too late for that, sir." "Maybe not. I want to see you, please." Maya hesitated. "Why?" "Because truth deserves to be spoken face to face." Her first instinct was to hang up to shield herself from more disappointment, but something in his tone stopped her. Not pity. Not guilt. Something steadier. "Where?" she asked finally. "There's a small cafe on King Street. Tomorrow at noon." "I'll think about it," she said, then hung up before he could reply. For a long while she sat motionless, the phone still warm in her hand. The rain began to fall again, tapping against the glass in uneven rhythm. Truth, she thought, was never soft. It always came back to knock on the door you tried hardest to lock. At the mansion, Ethan returned to his study and set the flash drive inside a drawer. Then, hesitating, he took out another. This one labeled Security Backup. Library. He connected it to his computer and copied the file again, not because he doubted himself, but because he understood now that truth could vanish as easily as trust. Behind him, Regina watched from the hallway, her reflection barely visible in the mirror near the staircase. Her smile was gone, replaced by something colder: determination, fear, and the faint spark of revenge. She whispered to herself, "You think this is over, Ethan? You have no idea who you're dealing with." But upstairs, Clara sat at her window, listening to the soft patter of rain. A peace she hadn't felt in weeks settled over her. Somewhere out there, the young woman who had shielded her would finally be seen for who she was. And perhaps, in that seeing, redemption would begin, not loud, not violent, but quietly, like dawn after a storm. The cafe on King Street was small and tucked between a used bookstore and an old tailor's shop that had been there since the 1952. Its windows were fogged from the steam of the espresso machines, and the smell of roasted beans lingered thick in the air. Outside, puddles shimmered under the midday sun, reflecting the pastel row houses of Charleston like ghosts of a calmer world. Maya sat by the window, her hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug, though the drink had long gone cold. She hadn't been sure she would come, but she was there, early, because despite everything, she still believed in decency. The sound of the bell over the door made her look up. Ethan Calloway stood in the doorway, out of place in his tailored gray suit, a man too polished for the humble cafe. When their eyes met, she felt something between anger and relief stir in her chest. He hesitated, then approached the table. "Maya, Mr. Calloway." Her voice was steady, polite, but distant. He sat down opposite her. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them carried all the things words could never fully fix. "Thank you for coming," he said finally. "I almost didn't. I wouldn't have blamed you." He looked down at his hands. "I owe you more than an apology." She studied him carefully. He looked tired, worn in a way that money couldn't hide. "Then say what you came to say," she replied. He exhaled. "You were right. I saw the recording. Everything. You protected my mother, and I—" he faltered, guilt twisting in his throat. "I destroyed your name because I trusted the wrong person." "Mager." Maya's fingers tightened around her mug. "You didn't destroy my name, Mr. Calloway. You just reminded me how quickly people like me can lose it." He flinched. "You don't deserve that. You deserve—" "What? Fairness?" She let out a quiet, bitter laugh. "Justice doesn't visit women like me very often." He didn't argue. "Then let me try to change that." Her gaze softened, but only slightly. "Why? To ease your conscience?" "No," he said simply. "To do what's right, finally." The waitress interrupted with a nervous smile. "Can I get you folks anything?" Maya shook her head. Ethan asked for coffee, but it went untouched. I thought you might hate me, he said quietly. I did, Maya admitted. For a while, but hate doesn't hold up forever. It just turns into something heavier. Regret? She looked at him for a long moment. Pity. He smiled faintly at that. I deserve that too. Den. Across the cafe, a man in a tweed cap strummed an old guitar, filling the silence with something soft and nostalgic. It reminded Maya of the evenings she'd spent humming while cooking for Mrs. Calloway, the way the older woman would sit nearby, eyes closed, humming along. Ethan followed her gaze. My mother asks about you every day. Her expression flickered. Is she all right? She's healing. She misses you. She said you made the house feel human again. Maya blinked back sudden tears. She's a good woman. I wish she hadn't had to see what she saw. He leaned forward slightly. She believes in you completely. And so do I, now. That's easy to say when you've seen the proof. He nodded. Maybe. But I think I knew. Even before I watched it. I just didn't want to face what that meant about the person I was marrying. You loved her, Maya said softly. I thought I did, he admitted. But it wasn't love. It was admiration mixed with blindness. Maya tilted her head. Blindness can be cured. Not always. He gave a small, weary smile. Sometimes it leaves scars. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't sharp, it was fragile, almost tender. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. But I wanted to see you, face to face, to say thank you. For what? For being better than all of us. Maya shook her head. Don't thank me for doing what anyone decent should have done. She looked down. Voice barely above a whisper. Your mother didn't deserve what happened. And I couldn't stand by and let someone break her. Ethan reached into his jacket pocket and slid something across the table, a white envelope. There's a check inside. Compensation for what you went through, for the defamation. For the time you lost. She pushed it back immediately. No. It's the least I can. I said no. Her tone was firm now. The quiet strength of someone who had been dismissed too many times. You can't buy back dignity. You can only live like you understand what it's worth. Ethan looked at her, eyes damp but steady. Then let me at least make amends another way. I'm ending things with Regina, and I want to do something in your honor, something for people like you and my mother. A foundation, a safe place. Maya's breath caught. You don't owe me that. I owe it to the woman I failed to see. For the first time, she smiled not with forgiveness, but with weary acceptance. If you mean that, then don't build it for me. Build it for her, for Mrs. Calloway. She's the one who showed me what grace looks like. Ethan nodded, eyes bright with quiet resolve. Then that's what I'll do. They sat there for another few minutes. The air between them no longer heavy with accusation, but with understanding. When Maya finally rose to leave, Ethan stood too. Will I see you again? He asked. She hesitated at the door. Maybe. When the truth's done healing. Oh. Outside, the city shimmered with post-rain light, the streets still slick, the scent of jasmine drifting faintly from the old iron balconies above. Maya walked toward the bus stop, her steps light but sure. Inside the cafe, Ethan remained seated, the untouched check still on the table. He glanced out the window, watching her disappear down the street. For the first time in months, he felt something shift inside him. Not peace exactly, but purpose. When he returned home later that afternoon, the mansion seemed different, quieter, colder. Clara was resting, the nurse reading softly beside her. But from upstairs, he heard the echo of heels clicking across marble. Regina was waiting. As he climbed the stairs, his hand brushed the flash drive in his pocket. The truth was no longer silent, and he wasn't, either. The late afternoon light spilled across the marble staircase as Ethan climbed toward the second floor of the mansion. The house, though still immaculate, felt altered, like something sacred had been broken and poorly glued back together. Regina's laughter drifted faintly from the master suite. It was a sound that once charmed him, now thin and brittle, echoing off the walls like glass ready to shatter. When he reached the doorway, she was sitting at her vanity, applying lipstick in slow, deliberate strokes. The mirror reflected her smile, but not her eyes. She didn't turn when he entered. "You've been gone all day," she said, her tone light, controlled. "Should I be jealous of another woman?" "Maybe you should," he answered, voice calm but firm. Her hand stilled. "Excuse me?" "I met with Maya." Regina's reflection froze, the lipstick hovering just above her lips. She turned slowly, masking her panic with an icy laugh. "You've got to be joking. After everything she did?" "She didn't do anything," Ethan said. "You did." Regina stood abruptly, the silk of her robe whispering as she faced him. "What exactly are you accusing me of, Ethan?" He stepped closer, placing the flash drive on the vanity table between them. "You know what this is." She stared at it, her pulse visibly rising at her neck. "You think some edited clip changes the truth?" "It's not edited," he said softly. "I've seen it, every second of it." Regina's expression hardened into something raw, stripped of charm. "You don't understand. She was turning you against me. That girl, she knew what she was doing." Ethan's voice grew cold. "She was protecting my mother." "She was protecting herself," Regina snapped, her words trembling with fury. "That old woman despised me. You know that. She wanted me gone. And that Maid, she saw an opportunity to play hero." He took another step closer, his tone quiet, dangerous. "You kicked my mother." The words hung in the air, final and immovable. Regina's jaw twitched. Ethan leaned forward slightly. "I'm not asking you to deny it. I just want to know why." Her silence was answer enough. He nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." Regina's eyes burned, her voice dropping to a hiss. "Do you have any idea what I've done for you? What I've given up?" "I know exactly what you've taken," he said, turning away. "Don't walk away from me," she shouted. He stopped at the doorway, his back still to her. "You should start packing. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the press statement." Regina's breath caught. "You're not ending this. It's already ended." He left her standing there, trembling with a rage that had nowhere to go. When the sound of his footsteps faded, Regina turned back to the mirror. Her face was flawless, but her hands shook. She pressed her palms flat against the glass, whispering to her reflection, "He won't ruin me, not him." Downstairs, Ethan went straight to his study. The house was unnervingly quiet. Linda must have taken the evening off, and Clara was resting. He sat at his desk, staring at the half-finished foundation proposal he'd started drafting after his meeting with Maya. The idea still felt right. To create something good out of the wreckage. But now, everything was tangled in the same knot of regret. He rubbed his temples, then picked up the phone. "Jonathan," he said when his attorney answered, "I need you to start proceedings to end my engagement with Regina Ward immediately." "Understood," came the calm voice on the other end. "Do you want it handled privately or public?" "Public," Ethan said. "She built her reputation on appearances. Let the truth undo it." After hanging up, he leaned back and stared at the rain starting up again outside his window. The Charleston skyline glowed faintly in the distance, blurred by drizzle. The storm had become his companion these days, a mirror of the chaos he had helped create. Meanwhile, in her motel room across town, Maya sat cross-legged on the bed, the small TV flickering with the evening news. The sound was low, but the image was unmistakable. Regina Ward, smiling for the cameras at a charity event, dressed in diamonds and false virtue. Regina Ward, fiancée of tech magnate Ethan Callaway, continues her rise as one of Charleston's most influential women. Maya muted the TV, her stomach twisted, but not from surprise. She'd seen people like Regina all her life, people who could reinvent their sins with one good photo. But now that Ethan knew the truth, she hoped, perhaps foolishly, that the mask would finally crack. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Check your email." Suspicious, she opened her laptop and signed in. There, in her inbox, sat a message from Ethan. The subject line read, "Proof of truth," and a request. The email was simple. "Maya, I have ended things with Regina. The video you sent saved more than my mother, it saved me from living a lie. But I can't let this end in silence. I want to make things right. Please come tomorrow. Bring your honesty, I'll bring mine. E." Maya closed the laptop, her heartbeat unsteady. She had told herself she would never step foot in that house again, but part of her knew she would go, not for him, but for Clara. That night, the storm grew violent, thunder rattling the thin motel windows. Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The sound reminded her of that first night of the crash of porcelain, of the world breaking in front of her. But this time, the storm didn't scare her. It sounded like renewal. At the same time, back at the Calloway estate, Regina stood on the balcony, drenched in the rain, a glass of wine in her hand. Her makeup was smeared, her lipstick bleeding into the corners of her mouth. She whispered into the storm, "You think you can humiliate me? You think you can erase me?" Lightning flashed, lighting her face in stark white. "We'll see about that." Inside, Ethan watched the rain through the window of his study. His phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. He opened it. A photo appeared. Regina, standing in the rain, her expression wild. Below it, a message. "If you destroy me, I'll take everything with me." He deleted the message without replying. Then, with quiet resolve, he reopened his laptop and typed the final words on the foundation proposal, "For those who speak when no one will listen." He saved the document and closed the screen. Upstairs, the house creaked softly in the wind, the sound like a whisper from the past. He knew what came next would not be easy. But at least now, the truth was no longer buried. It was alive, restless, and waiting to be heard. The following morning unfolded with an uneasy stillness. The air was thick, damp with the memory of last night's storm. Ethan stood by the front window of the Calloway mansion, a mug of coffee cooling in his hand. His reflection ghosted against the glass. The city beyond was waking up, traffic humming, sunlight filtering through mist, but inside the house, silence reigned like an unspoken truce. He had sent the invitation the night before, unsure if Maya would come. A part of him doubted it. Another part, the one his mother had raised to believe that decency still mattered, held on to hope. The clock struck 10 when the doorbell finally rang. He didn't wait for the butler. He walked to the door himself. When he opened it, Maya stood there in a simple navy coat, her hair still damp from the morning drizzle. "Mr. Calloway," she said quietly. "Maya," he replied, voice low. "Please, come in." The sound of her footsteps on the marble floor echoed faintly, almost shyly. She glanced around the foyer. Nothing had changed. Yet everything had. The last time she'd been here, she'd been accused, humiliated, fired. The air still held a trace of that pain. Clara's voice floated from the top of the staircase. "Maya?" Maya looked up. The older woman stood there, leaning slightly on her cane, her smile trembling but radiant. "Mrs. Calloway," Maya whispered, eyes misting. Clara descended the stairs slowly. Ethan moved to assist, but she waved him off. When she reached Maya, she reached out with frail, shaking hands and touched her cheek. "You came back. I wasn't sure I should," Maya admitted. Clara's eyes softened. "You should always come where you're loved." For the first time in months, Maya smiled fully. "I missed you. I missed you more." Clara took her hand and squeezed it. "Come, we have much to talk about. But first, coffee. Ethan still doesn't know how to make it properly." Ethan smiled faintly, a rare, genuine warmth breaking through the weight he carried. "That's fair." They moved into the sitting room, sunlight spilling across the hardwood floors. Maya sat across from them, her posture straight but guarded. The memory of accusation lingered like a shadow in her spine. "I received your message," she said. "You said you wanted to make things right." Ethan nodded. "I do." He took a deep breath. "I've ended my engagement with Regina. Publicly." Maya blinked, surprise flickering across her face. "That must have caused a storm." "It did," he said, "and it's only just begun, but it's the kind of storm I can live with." Clara looked between them, her eyes gleaming with quiet pride. "Truth has a way of shaking loose, everything false," she said softly. Ethan turned back to Maya. "I've started a foundation in my mother's name, the Clara Trust. It's going to support caregivers, nurses, domestic workers, people like you who dedicate their lives to compassion and get nothing but cruelty in return." Maya hesitated. "That's generous." "It's necessary," he replied, "because if I can't turn what happened into something meaningful, then all we have left are regrets." Clara smiled faintly. You're starting to sound like your father when he was still good. Maya chuckled softly, tension easing from her shoulders. Mrs. Calloway, I'm happy for you both. Truly. But I didn't come for recognition. Ethan leaned forward. Then why did you come? She looked at him directly. To see if you were sincere. People like me, we've learned to hear the difference between guilt and truth. They don't sound the same. He nodded, accepting the quiet challenge. Then listen carefully, Maya. His voice steadied. You saved my mother's life. You saved mine too, though I didn't realize it. I've been living surrounded by walls built out of pride and comfort. You tore them down with one act of courage. Maya's lips trembled, but she didn't look away. I didn't do it for you. I did it because it was right. I know, he said, and that's why it matters. The air in the room shifted, no longer heavy, but charged with understanding. For the first time since the chaos began, they could breathe. Clara sipped her tea, smiling as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this peace. You know, she said gently. Maya used to hum when she thought no one was listening. That's how I knew I could trust her. People who hum while they work carry peace with them. Maya laughed softly, cheeks warming. Old habits. Ethan watched her, his expression thoughtful. Maybe that's what this house needs again. Peace. Their moment was interrupted by a knock at the door, sharp, insistent. The butler appeared a moment later, his expression uneasy. Sir, Miss Ward is here. Clara's teacup rattled faintly in its saucer. Maya's spine straightened. Ethan's voice hardened. Tell her she's not welcome. Before the butler could move, Regina's voice rang out from the entryway. Too late for that. She strode into the room, immaculate as ever in a tailored white coat, her hair perfect, her smile, a weapon. How touching, she said. The savior returns. The betrayed son repents. What a show. Ethan rose slowly, the warmth vanishing from his face. Regina, leave now. She ignored him, her eyes locked on Maya. You think you've won, don't you? You think one little video can erase me? Maya stood, calm but resolute. I don't need to erase you. You're doing that yourself. Now, Regina's expression twisted. You have no idea who I am. I know exactly who you are, Maya said quietly. And I'm not afraid of you anymore. Ethan stepped between them. Regina, this is the last time you come into this house. Her smile faltered, a flicker of desperation breaking through the mask. You're making a mistake. I made you. I gave you purpose, status. You gave me blindness, Ethan said sharply. And I'm done being blind. Clara rose from her seat, her frail voice cutting through the tension. Get out, Miss Ward. This home has seen enough cruelty to last a lifetime. Regina's lips trembled, her eyes darting between them. For a moment, she looked like a child caught lying. Then her mask slipped back into place. You'll regret this, she whispered, and turned on her heel. The echo of her heels faded down the hallway. Maya exhaled, her hands shaking slightly. You should be careful, Ethan. She's not finished. Mia. I know, he said quietly, but neither am I. Clara smiled faintly. Then let's start again from the truth outward. Maya looked at her, then at Ethan. For the first time since that terrible day, the mansion didn't feel like a place of pain. It felt like a house learning how to heal. Outside, the storm clouds broke, sunlight spilling across the wet garden like forgiveness. That evening, the Calloway mansion glowed under the soft amber of the setting Sunday. For the first time in weeks, the air inside felt lighter. Clara rested peacefully in her upstairs room, humming faintly as Maya read to her from an old collection of poems. Downstairs, Ethan sat at his desk, finalizing the official press release that would announce his split from Regina Ward. The words were measured and respectful, too respectful, Maya might have said, but they carried truth. The engagement between Ethan Calloway and Regina Ward has been ended by mutual decision. The Calloway family wishes her well. He read it 3 times before pressing send. Once he did, a strange quiet settled in the room, a silence, not of peace but of anticipation. Outside, the first stars began to appear, but somewhere across the city, another light was burning colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. Regina Ward sat at her vanity in her penthouse, the same mirror where she once practiced smiles that could melt stone. Now she stared at her reflection, mascara smudged from tears she refused to admit to. On her phone, headlines were already spreading. Calloway ends engagement with socialite Regina Ward, amid rumors of misconduct. Her phone buzzed with messages from reporters and acquaintances offering sympathy laced with curiosity. She tossed it onto the bed, eyes blazing. "You think you can humiliate me, Ethan?" she whispered to the empty room. "You think you can erase me from your story?" She opened her laptop, scrolling through old photos, hers and Ethan's, hers at charity events, hers with Clara, smiling like the perfect future daughter-in-law. Her smile now twisted into something venomous. "If truth is what you want," she murmured, "I'll give you a version no one will forget." Back at the mansion, Maya tucked a blanket around Clara, who had fallen asleep mid-sentence. For a moment, she simply watched the older woman breathe slow, steady, safe. She hadn't realized how deeply she'd missed the quiet rhythm of care. As she turned to leave, Ethan appeared at the doorway. He looked exhausted but resolute. "She's resting?" Maya nodded. Finally, he smiled faintly. "You're the only one who can calm her. I just remind her she's loved," Maya said softly. He studied her for a long moment, then said, "You could stay, you know, not as staff. As part of the foundation, I want you to help lead it." Maya blinked, taken aback. "You're serious?" "Completely." He stepped closer, sincerity plain in his eyes. "You have the strength, the empathy, the experience. I can't think of anyone better." She hesitated. "Ethan, I appreciate it, but I'm not sure I belong here anymore." "This isn't about belonging," he said quietly. "It's about purpose." Her gaze softened. "I'll think about it." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of a phone vibrating on the table. Ethan picked it up. It was his assistant. "Sir, I think you should see this," the voice said. "Regina just posted something online." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What kind of something?" "A statement, with pictures, of your mother, and Maya." He froze. "Send it to me." Seconds later, his inbox pinged. The post was already trending. The truth they're hiding. Abuse, lies, and the maid who manipulated a billionaire. Beneath the headline were photos taken months ago. Maya helping Clara into a car, pouring her medicine, standing beside Ethan in the garden, cropped and twisted. They told a story of betrayal, not care. Regina's caption read, "Sometimes the people who play angels wear the darkest masks." Maya's eyes widened as she looked over his shoulder. "She's trying to destroy us." Ethan's voice was calm but low, edged with steel. "No, she's destroying herself. She won't stop there," Maya said, shaking her head. "She's angry, cornered. That makes her dangerous." He nodded. "Then it's time the truth came fully to light." Within the hour, Ethan called his lawyer, his PR team, and finally a trusted journalist. "I'll release the full footage," he said. "No editing, no cuts. The world will see exactly what happened." The journalist on the other end hesitated. "Are you sure? It'll be brutal for her, for you, for your family." "I'm sure," he said. "The truth's already burned us once. It's time it burned clean." While he handled the chaos of statements and calls, Maya sat alone in the garden, the night air cool against her skin. Fireflies flickered above the roses, their glow gentle, fleeting. She thought of her mother again, of what she might have said. "Stand tall, Maya. You can't stop storms, but you can decide whether you drown or dance." She whispered into the dark, "I'm still here, Mama, still standing." Inside, Ethan sent the footage directly to the journalist, a silent transmission that would change everything by morning. Then he returned to the window, watching Maya in the garden. Her posture was calm, yet her presence steadied him more than any deal or fortune ever had. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring: lawsuits, headlines, maybe even loss, but for the first time in years, he felt grounded in something real. Meanwhile, across town, Regina watched the same footage upload to the news site's feed, her name trending in real time. Panic spread through her chest like wildfire. She threw her phone across the room, the sound shattering against the wall. Her reflection in the broken mirror stared back, fractured and unrecognizable. You did this, she whispered, voice shaking. You made me the villain. La. But deep down, beneath the rage, a tiny voice told her what she refused to admit. She had written her own ending long before Ethan ever pressed send. At the mansion, as midnight drew near, Clara stirred from sleep. Maya was still sitting beside her, half dozing in the armchair. The older woman reached out weakly, touching Maya's hand. Is it over? She murmured. Maya smiled softly. Not yet, but soon. Good, Clara whispered. Let the truth rest when it's ready. And Stu. And as the storm clouds began to clear over Charleston, one house once heavy with secrets breathed again. The truth had started to speak. And though it came with pain, it carried something else too. Freedom. The morning that followed was unlike any other. Charleston awoke to chaos, radio anchors, podcasts, and morning shows all buzzing with the same headline. Security footage confirms abuse allegations against socialite Regina Ward. The video had gone viral overnight, shared millions of times. Every frame of the truth that Maya had fought for now lived in the public domain. At the Calloway mansion, the phone hadn't stopped ringing. Ethan ignored most of the calls, standing by the window with a grim, quiet focus. He could hear the low murmur of his legal team in the next room, their voices alternating between strategy and disbelief. His reflection in the glass looked older, somehow less naive, less indulgent, more human. Maya entered softly, holding 2 mugs of coffee. You should drink something, she said. He turned, weary but grateful. Thank you. She handed him a cup, her expression unreadable. It's everywhere, Ethan. Everyone's seen it. I know, he said quietly. It was time they did. He gestured toward the muted TV on the wall. A newscaster was reporting live from outside Regina's penthouse. Behind her, camera flashes exploded like lightning. Sources close to the Calloway family confirmed that the footage was verified by independent analysts. Miss Ward has yet to release a statement. Maya watched for a moment, then turned away. It's strange, she murmured. You think truth will make you feel lighter, but it just leaves a different kind of weight. Ethan nodded. Truth doesn't set you free right away. It makes you face what kept you trapped. From upstairs, the faint creak of footsteps signaled Clara's arrival. She descended slowly, wearing a pale blue shawl, her silver hair neatly brushed. You two look like you've been up all night, she said, her tone gentle but firm. Maya rose instantly. You should be resting. Clara waved off the concern. Resting is for people who have nothing left to fix. She settled into an armchair near the window. So, the world knows now? Ethan nodded. They do. Clara sighed, her voice softening. Good. Now maybe that poor woman will finally stop pretending she's a victim. Maya hesitated. Do you think she'll try to fight back? She'll try, Clara said simply. People like her always do. But lies are fragile things. They collapse the moment you stop feeding them. Her words lingered like scripture. Across town, in the same penthouse where she'd once celebrated magazine covers and champagne toasts, Regina Ward sat surrounded by silence. Her phone blinked with dozens of missed calls. Her inbox flooded with messages from publicists and lawyers. The world had turned against her overnight. She stared blankly at her reflection, her makeup gone, her hair a tangled mess. The TV droned in the background, the same story looping endlessly. Confirmed that Miss Ward struck Mrs. Clara Calloway during an altercation. The video clearly shows. Regina lunged for the remote and shut it off. Enough, she whispered, though the silence that followed was worse. She walked to the window. Below, photographers crowded the street, their cameras pointed upward like weapons. The rain from last night had left the pavement slick, reflecting the flashbulbs like 1,000 tiny explosions. She poured herself a drink and sank onto the couch. The glass trembled in her hand. They'll move on, she said to no one. They always do. They'll find another scandal. But deep down, she knew they wouldn't. Her empire was built on beauty, reputation, and charm, and all three had crumbled overnight. Back at the mansion, Maya helped Clara settle into her favorite chair near the fireplace. The older woman watched the flames flicker, the light dancing across her weathered face. You've given us back our dignity, Maya, Clara said quietly. But I can't help wondering what's next for you. Maya hesitated. I don't know. I never really thought that far ahead. Ethan joined them, setting down a stack of papers. You could stay here, he said. Work with the foundation. Help us build it from the ground up. Maya looked from him to Clara. Are you sure that's what you want? After everything? Clara smiled warmly. It's what we need. Maya exhaled slowly, her gaze falling on the fire. Then maybe I will. The moment felt calm, simple, almost ordinary, but behind the peace, something deeper stirred. By afternoon, the press camped outside the mansion gates. Reporters shouted questions through the wrought iron. But the Callaways remained silent. Ethan released only one statement to the public. The truth requires no defense. My family stands with integrity, and I stand with those who showed it when I couldn't. It was short, honest, final. That evening, Maya stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the gardens. The air was cool, carrying the scent of magnolia and rain. She watched the sunset paint the sky in soft hues of orange and violet. For the first time since she'd been accused, she felt her breath come easy. Ethan joined her quietly. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he said, "When I saw that footage, I thought I'd never forgive myself." She looked at him, her expression gentle but firm. "You don't need forgiveness, Ethan. You just need to remember." Remember what? That people's worth isn't measured by where they stand in your house, but how they stand when no one's watching. He smiled faintly. You sound like my mother. Maya chuckled. She's wise. He looked out over the horizon. You know, there's still a long way to go. The foundation, rebuilding trust, the lawsuits. She nodded. Then we start with one honest step at a time. Inside, Clara watched them from the window, a small, proud smile tugging at her lips. The storm that had once torn their lives apart had become a strange kind of grace. Through pain, truth had found its voice. And through truth, healing had begun. Down the street, the sound of the evening bells echoed from St. Peter's Church, deep and steady. It was the sound of closure, of something ending and beginning all at once. Maya closed her eyes and whispered, almost to herself, "Sometimes justice doesn't roar. Sometimes it just breathes." Ethan looked at her, not as a savior, not as a mistake, but as the compass he had lost and finally found again. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the lights of the mansion glowed softly against the dark, a house no longer haunted, but reborn. By the next morning, Charleston had already chosen its side. The city's whispers, once filled with gossip about Regina's beauty and charm, had shifted into something colder, quieter, edged with disbelief. Her name, which used to grace charity banners and magazine covers, now appeared in headlines soaked with scandal. Socialite Regina Ward under fire after abuse video leak. Former fiancé of Ethan Callaway faces public backlash. At the Callaway mansion, Ethan stood in the sunlit breakfast room with a newspaper folded in his hand. He didn't smile at the sight of justice. It didn't feel like victory, only inevitability. Justice, he was learning, was rarely clean. It came with splinters and echoes. Maya entered with a fresh pot of coffee, her movements steady, graceful as always. "It's all anyone's talking about," she said quietly. "I know." He looked up, eyes tired but clear. "And she'll fight it. You can count on that." "She already is," Maya replied. Her lawyers claiming the video was taken out of context. "That you edited it to ruin her." Ethan let out a humorless laugh. "Out of context? My mother's bruises didn't come with footnotes." Maya poured his coffee and sat opposite him. "The truth is on your side. That's what matters." He studied her face. "You always make it sound simple." "It's not simple," she said softly, "but it's steady. Like light, it just keeps shining, even when no one's ready to look." Before he could answer, Clara's voice called faintly from the hallway. "Maya, darling, could you help me with my shawl?" Maya smiled and rose immediately. "Of course." Ethan watched her go, that quiet dignity following her like a second shadow. He wondered, not for the first time, how someone who had been treated so cruelly could still move through the world with such grace. Upstairs, Clara sat near her dressing table, her reflection framed by the morning light. She looked frailer today, but her eyes still sparkled with the clarity of someone who had made peace with the past. "Do you think he's all right?" she asked as Maya adjusted the shawl around her shoulders. "Ethan," Clara nodded. "He carries guilt the way some men carry wealth. Heavy, quiet, and close to the heart." Maya smiled sadly. "He's trying, Mrs. Calloway. That's more than most would do." Clara looked at her through the mirror. "And what about you? Are you all right?" Maya paused, hands stilling on the fabric. "I'm healing. Slowly." "Good." Clara's lips curved into a soft smile. "Healing means you've decided to keep living." Downstairs, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was his attorney again. "Ethan," the voice said. "Regina's publicist just announced she's filing a defamation suit. She's demanding an official retraction." Ethan's jaw tightened. "She can demand the moon if she wants. We have proof. We have witnesses. We have the truth. You also have a mother to protect," the lawyer warned. "If this goes to court, it'll drag her into it." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. "I'll handle it." Quietly. When he hung up, he found Maya standing in the doorway. "You heard?" "I did," he nodded. "It's fine. She can throw every lie she wants at us. We're done hiding." Later that afternoon, as the autumn sun poured golden light across the garden, Maya helped Clara outside. The air was crisp, filled with the faint scent of jasmine. Clara breathed deeply, closing her eyes. "I'd forgotten how beautiful the world is when you stop being afraid of it." Ethan joined them, his jacket unbuttoned, sleeves rolled. "I used to think beauty came from control," he said. "From keeping everything perfect. Now I think it's just honesty." Maya smiled. "Honesty's not always pretty." "No," he said. "But it's real." For a while, the three of them sat in companionable silence. Clara rested her hand over Maya's. "You remind me of the nurses I worked with during the war," she said. "They were brave in the quiet ways. They didn't fight battles with guns, but with faith." Maya's eyes softened. "You give me too much credit." "Not enough," Clara replied. The sound of distant thunder rolled through the horizon, a storm forming again, slow but steady. Ethan looked up. "It's strange," he said. "Every storm lately feels less like punishment and more like cleansing." Maya glanced at the gray clouds gathering over the trees. "That's because you're not running from them anymore." Her words lingered in the air long after the first raindrops began to fall. As the rain grew heavier, they retreated inside. Clara returned to her room to rest, leaving Ethan and Maya standing in the grand foyer. The sound of rain tapping against the glass like a soft percussion. "She'll come for you again," Maya said quietly. "Regina, you know that, right?" Ethan nodded. "I do. But this time, I'll be ready." "Not with anger," Maya warned. "With truth." He met her gaze, holding it. "You really believe that's enough?" She smiled faintly. "It always was. You just never trusted it." He took a breath, his voice low. "Maya, when this is all over, when the dust settles, I want you to stay." "As what?" "As yourself." She hesitated, unsure what he meant, but before she could ask, Clara's voice called faintly from upstairs. "Maya, could you bring my tea, dear?" Maya turned to go, her pulse unsteady, but as she walked away, Ethan spoke softly, almost to himself. "Sometimes the people you need most are the ones you've already wronged." That night, as rain washed the city clean again, the Calloway mansion glowed with a different kind of light. Not luxury, not pride, but something quieter, something human. And miles away, Regina Ward stared out at the same rain from her penthouse balcony. She was barefoot, her makeup gone, her empire in ruins. The city lights flickered below her like judgment. In her hand was a single photograph, her and Ethan, at a charity gala, smiling beneath chandeliers. She tore it clean in two. Her whisper dissolved into the storm. "If they think this is the end, they're wrong." But somewhere inside her, buried deep beneath the anger, Regina felt something she hadn't in years: fear. By the time dawn rose again, Charleston was awash with tension. The morning air carried the faint hum of news vans parked near the Callaway estate gates, reporters clutching umbrellas as they waited for the next wave of scandal. Every whisper, every photograph, every second of footage had become currency, and Ethan Callaway's name was on every tongue. Inside the mansion, Ethan sat in his study, the blinds half drawn. His mother's soft breathing could be heard through the open door across the hall, steady and alive, the anchor in the chaos. On his desk, papers were stacked in neat order. Legal notices, news transcripts, public statements. But his mind wasn't on the documents. It was on the silence between footsteps upstairs, Maya's quiet presence as she moved about the house. He had begun to rely on the sound. A knock came at the study door. "Come in." Maya entered, a folder in her hand. "The lawyer sent over the foundation paperwork," she said. "It's ready to file." Ethan gestured for her to sit. "Thank you. I'll review it today." She nodded, but she didn't leave. Something in her face told him she was holding back. "What is it?" he asked. "I saw the news this morning," she said softly. "Regina's going after you personally. She's saying the video was part of a conspiracy, that you and I fabricated it." He exhaled through his nose, unsurprised. "She's desperate. She's dangerous," Maya corrected. "Desperate people make noise. Dangerous people make plans." Ethan looked at her, really looked. Her strength was not loud, not dramatic, but quiet and unwavering. "You're right," he said. "I'll make sure security's doubled around the house." "I'm not worried for me," she said gently. "I'm worried for Mrs. Callaway." His jaw tightened. "I won't let anyone near her." Maya gave a small nod, her gaze steady. "Good." They sat in silence for a moment, the tension between them threaded with unspoken understanding. Finally, she rose. "If you need anything, I'll be upstairs." "Nah, Maya," he called softly as she reached the door. She turned. "Thank you for not walking away." Her lips curved into a faint smile. "I tried, but some people you just can't walk away from." When she left, Ethan leaned back in his chair, the truth of her words settling deep into his chest. That afternoon, as rain clouds gathered again, Ethan's lawyer arrived. "She's filed an injunction," Jonathan said, setting down a briefcase. "She's claiming the footage violates her privacy and is demanding its removal from every platform." Ethan scoffed. "She's the one who exposed herself." "Be careful," Jonathan warned. "If she drags this into court, the focus could shift. You'll have to relive it all publicly." "I can handle that." "But can your mother?" Ethan hesitated. His silence was answer enough. Meanwhile, across town, Regina was orchestrating her next move. She sat with her PR consultant in a dim office overlooking the harbor, her once polished demeanor now sharpened into something harder. "We leak a counter-story," she said, "something that questions his motives. We suggest he release that footage to deflect from financial issues at his company." The consultant hesitated. "That's risky. You'd be going against a documented truth." Regina's voice was ice. "Truth is just timing and tone. We control both." He nodded reluctantly. "I'll draft something discreet." When he left, Regina poured herself another glass of wine and looked out the window. Her reflection in the glass was blurred by the gray of the storm clouds gathering over the water. "You took everything from me, Ethan," she whispered. "Now watch how it feels to lose what you love." At the mansion, the afternoon air turned heavy, thick with humidity. Maya stood in Clara's room, closing the windows as thunder rolled in the distance. "Another storm," Clara murmured, half asleep. Maya smiled softly. "They always pass." "Not all of them," Clara whispered, her eyes fluttering open. "Some storms don't end, they just change their names." Downstairs, Ethan's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. A familiar voice slid through the line like a blade. "You think you've won." "Regina," he said evenly. "You think a video makes you righteous? You think the world forgives that easily?" "I don't care what the world forgives," he said. "I care what's true." Her laughter was hollow, unhinged. "Truth? Do you know what truth sounds like when no one's left to hear it? It sounds like silence." He said nothing. "I'll see you soon," she whispered, and the line went dead. Ethan stood motionless, the phone still pressed to his ear. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he turned toward the window, watching as lightning split the horizon. Maya found him there minutes later. his face pale. "Who was that?" she asked. "Her," he said simply. Maya's stomach sank. "What did she say?" "Nothing that changes what comes next," he said quietly. "But I think she's done hiding behind lawyers." As the storm outside deepened, Maya placed a hand on his arm. "Then we stay ready." Thunder cracked overhead, rattling the windows. Ethan looked down at her hand, then at her eyes, steady, fearless, grounding. For the first time since this began, he didn't feel alone. Later that night, long after the staff had gone to bed, Ethan sat in the darkened library, the fire flickering low. He could hear the soft rain against the glass, the steady rhythm of an old grandfather clock, and somewhere upstairs, Maya's faint footsteps checking on his mother. The house that had once felt like a mausoleum now felt alive again, alive with truth, with pain, with fragile hope. But outside, beyond the gates, a black sedan sat idling in the rain. Inside, Regina watched the mansion through the windshield. Her expression unreadable. She whispered to herself, "You said you'd protect her, Ethan. Let's see how well you do." The storm roared to life again, as if the heavens themselves knew what was coming. The storm hit just after midnight. The mansion shuddered under the weight of rain, every window alive with flickering reflections of lightning. Maya woke to the distant rumble of thunder and the faint sound of movement downstairs, a door creaking open. A shadow crossing the hall. At first, she thought it was one of the housekeepers, but then she remembered. Everyone had gone home early, worried about the weather. Only she, Ethan, and Clara remained. The air felt charged, wrong. She slipped from bed, pulling a sweater around her shoulders, and stepped into the hallway. The lights flickered once, twice, and then steadied. From the stairwell below, she heard the faint metallic click of the front door latch. Her pulse quickened. She descended quietly, her bare feet silent on the carpeted stairs. In the dim light of the foyer, she saw the door ajar, the rain lashing against the marble floor just inside. "Ethan?" she whispered. No answer. "Mr. Calloway?" A flash of lightning lit the room, revealing a silhouette standing near the library entrance. Tall, motionless, familiar. "Regina," Maya breathed. The figure turned, her face pale and wet, hair plastered to her cheeks. The white coat she wore glowed ghost-like in the stormlight. In her hand, she held a small pistol, trembling. "You always were the house's saint, weren't you?" Regina said softly. "Always there, always watching." Maya's throat went dry. "You shouldn't be here." "No." Regina stepped forward, the gun steadying as her voice hardened. "You ruined me." "No," Maya said, calm despite the fear crawling up her spine. "You did that yourself." The door at the end of the hall opened, and Ethan appeared, his voice low and sharp. "Regina, put it down." Her laugh cracked. Half hysteria, half heartbreak. "Of course you'd come running for her. You couldn't even pretend to love me after she walked back into your life." "This isn't love," Ethan said. "It's obsession. You need to leave before you do something you can't take back." "Take back?" she whispered. "You took everything from me." Her hand trembled, the muzzle wavering toward Maya. "Maybe it's time you lose something too." Maya stayed still, her voice gentle. "Regina, you don't want to do this. You're scared, angry. I know what that feels like." "Don't," Regina snapped, tears mingling with rain. "Don't you dare pity me." A sudden sound, Clara's frail voice from the staircase. "Regina, stop." "Mel." All three turned. The older woman stood there in her robe, her cane shaking slightly in her hand. "You've done enough damage," Clara said softly. "Don't make this the last thing you'll ever be remembered for." Regina's face twisted, pain and fury clashing behind her eyes. "She always hated me," she muttered, her voice cracking. "She wanted you to hate me too, Ethan." Ethan took a step closer, hands raised. "No one has to get hurt." "Don't move," Regina screamed. Lightning exploded outside, filling the foyer with white light. The wind howled through the open door, and then the sharp crack of a gunshot. Maya gasped and instinctively lunged forward, tackling Clara to the ground. The bullet tore through the edge of the staircase railing, splintering wood. Ethan grabbed the fallen gun, kicking it away as Regina stumbled back, her face pale with shock. "Oh my God," she whispered, her own trembling hands before her. "I didn't mean—" Ethan's voice was low, shaking with anger and disbelief. "You just did." Regina backed away, tears cutting paths through her rain-streaked face. "I just wanted you to see me," she said. "For once." "I see you," he said, "and I pity you." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Security had triggered the alarm. Maya rose slowly, helping Clara up, her own body shaking. "It's over," she said softly. Regina's eyes darted toward the door, panic rising. No, it's not." She turned and ran into the storm, her white coat vanishing into the sheets of rain before anyone could stop her. Ethan started after her, but Maya caught his arm. "Let her go," she said. "She's already lost." He froze, breathing hard, his pulse pounding in his ears. He looked at Maya, then at his mother, safe but trembling. The weight of what nearly happened settled over him like the storm pressing down on the roof. Within minutes, the police arrived. 2 patrol cars pulled up the driveway, lights flashing red and blue against the marble. Ethan gave his statement quietly, his words measured. "She broke in. She fired once. No one was hit." Maya stood nearby, wrapped in a blanket, her hair dripping. When the officer asked if she wanted to press charges, she shook her head. "No," she said. "I just want her to get help." The officer nodded grimly. "We'll find her." When the chaos subsided and the sirens faded, Ethan returned inside. The house felt heavy again, but not the same kind of heavy. It was the silence that follows survival. Clara sat on the couch, her eyes tired but calm. "You both saved me," she said quietly. Again, Ethan sat beside her, taking her hand. "No, Mom. You saved us. You've been saving us all along." Maya stood by the window, watching the rain ease into mist. She turned when Ethan said her name. "I don't think I've ever met anyone braver," he said. She smiled faintly. "Fear doesn't disappear, Ethan. You just learn to keep moving anyway." He nodded slowly, his eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper, something unspoken. "You're right." Outside, the last of the storm rolled away, leaving the garden glistening under faint moonlight. Regina Ward was nowhere to be found. But for the first time in a long while, Ethan Calloway and Maya Williams stood in the same house, not as strangers bound by guilt, but as survivors bound by truth. The storm had taken nearly everything from them: reputation, certainty, peace, but what it left behind was stronger: the quiet, enduring light of those who refused to break. Morning arrived softly over Charleston, as though the city itself had been holding its breath all night. The rain had stopped, leaving behind streets slick and shining under a pale, forgiving Sunday. The Calloway mansion, usually immaculate and commanding, looked almost fragile in the calm, a grand house that had survived a battle of hearts and secrets. Inside, the scent of brewed coffee mingled with the faint trace of damp air sneaking in through open windows. Maya stood in the kitchen, her hair loosely tied back, staring absently at the steam rising from the pot. She hadn't slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the echo of the gunshot came back loud, sudden, final. Footsteps approached behind her. "You've been up all night," Ethan said gently. Maya didn't turn. "So have you." He leaned against the counter beside her, his shirt sleeves rolled, exhaustion shadowing his face. "The police searched until dawn. No sign of her." "She'll be found," Maya said softly. "People like Regina don't vanish. They reappear when the spotlight finds them again." He nodded, his jaw tightening. "She won't hurt anyone else. I'll make sure of that." They fell into silence. The morning light painted them both in muted gold, 2 souls bruised by the same storm. From the doorway, Clara's voice floated in weak but steady. "You two sound like you're planning a war." Maya turned immediately. "You should be resting." Clara smiled faintly. "I've done enough resting for one lifetime." She shuffled in, supported by her cane, her eyes sharp with quiet amusement. "Besides, I wanted to see my 2 heroes before the newspapers turn you into legends." "Well," Ethan helped her into a chair. "Mom, you shouldn't be walking around yet." "Don't you mom me," she said, wagging a finger. I've survived worse storms than this one. Though, I'll admit, this might have been the most dramatic. That drew a soft laugh from both Ethan and Maya, the first real laugh in what felt like ages. Clara looked between them, her smile softening. You've both changed. I can see it. The weight's still there, but it's sitting in the right places now. Oh, Maya poured her a cup of tea, the simple domestic gesture grounding the moment. We're just trying to find our balance again. Balance comes from gratitude, Clara said. And forgiveness. You don't need to forget, but you need to forgive yourself most of all. Her words hung in the quiet room like sunlight through lace. After breakfast, Ethan excused himself to take a call. Maya stayed with Clara, listening as the older woman recounted memories of her youth dances in the 1,960 seconds, her late husband's stubbornness, the long, slow years of learning how to be strong alone. I see the same strength in you, Clara said suddenly, looking up at Maya. You think it's a burden, but it's a gift. People break themselves trying to earn it. Maya lowered her gaze. Sometimes it feels less like a gift and more like armor. Armor can still shine, Clara replied. It just takes the right light. Down the hall, Ethan's voice rose slightly, firm but measured. He was speaking to his attorney again. Yes, I want to keep the charges minimal. No retaliation, no public statements beyond what's necessary. I just want this over. When he returned, Maya and Clara were sitting near the window, bathed in morning light. They've called off the active search, he said quietly. Apparently, Regina's lawyer reached out. She's leaving the country somewhere in Europe. Zrace. Clara's brows lifted, running away. Ethan nodded. The authorities won't press further if she stays out of reach. It's done. Maya exhaled slowly. Then maybe that's mercy. He looked at her, curious. You think she deserves that? Maya met his gaze. No, but I think we do. For a moment, their eyes held two people who had walked through hell and somehow found themselves standing on the same side of redemption. Later that day, Ethan drove his mother to a medical appointment. Maya stayed behind, tidying the house that had once felt like a cage but now seemed like something new, a home in recovery. The silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. In the study, she paused by the grand piano near the window. A thin layer of dust covered its lid. Gently, she wiped it clean and pressed one key. The note rang out, clear and sad. Then, another. Soon, the melody that filled the room was soft and hesitant like memory, or prayer. When Ethan returned, he stopped in the doorway, listening. The sound drifted through the house, wrapping around him like warmth. For a long moment, he simply stood there, watching her play. You never told me you could do that, he said when she finished. Maya smiled faintly. I used to play in church when I was little. It's been a long time. It's beautiful, he said. It's not perfect. Neither am I, he replied. But we're both still here. No. They shared a quiet look, no declarations, no confessions, just mutual understanding. As the afternoon light shifted, Clara returned home, tired but peaceful. Doctor says I'm stronger than I look, she declared. Imagine that. That's no surprise, Ethan said warmly. She grinned, settling into her chair. And what about you, son? You ready to start living instead of apologizing? Ethan laughed softly. I think I'm getting there. Good, she said, because the past's not something you bury, it's something you plant. Let it grow into something worth keeping. That evening, as twilight washed the city in soft lavender, Ethan and Maya stepped out onto the terrace. The garden below shimmered, freshly washed by the rain. The world felt quiet again, but not empty quiet, like something waiting to begin. She's gone, Maya said softly. For now, Ethan replied. But even if she never comes back, her shadow will linger. I just hope we've learned to live without fear of it. Maya nodded. We have. The air carried the faint scent of magnolia and earth. Somewhere in the distance, church bells began to toll the hour. Ethan looked at Maya, his expression tender. You once told me that truth doesn't roar, it breathes. I think I finally understand what that means. She smiled. Then breathe, Ethan. He did, deeply, for the first time in years, and as the last light faded, the mansion stood tall and still not haunted, not broken, but reborn. Autumn arrived in Charleston gently, like a quiet apology. The air carried the scent of falling leaves and river mist, and the Calloway mansion, once a symbol of wealth and pride, had become something humbler, warmer. The world outside still whispered about the scandal, but inside the estate, peace had begun to take root. Ethan stood on the front steps that morning, watching as a small team of workers installed the new brass sign by the gate. The letters gleamed in the sunlight. The Clara Trust Foundation Compassion. Courage. Dignity. Behind him, Maya approached, holding a folder filled with grant proposals and application forms. "It looks beautiful," she said. He turned, a rare, genuine smile breaking through his usual calm. "It does, doesn't it?" Mom cried when she saw the design sketch. She has every right to," Maya said softly. "It's her legacy." Ethan looked out over the garden, where Clara was sitting in her wheelchair beneath the magnolia tree, a shawl over her shoulders and a book open in her lap. "No," he said quietly. "It's yours too." Maya hesitated, uncertain how to respond. She'd been working alongside him for months now, managing logistics, writing proposals, meeting volunteers. What had begun as a fragile attempt to rebuild had turned into something real, something good. Still, she never forgot where it began: the accusation, the betrayal, the storm. She followed Ethan into the office where they'd set up the foundation's headquarters, a converted wing of the mansion, filled with sunlight and fresh paint. On the wall hung a framed photo of Clara smiling between Ethan and Maya, taken at the foundation's opening ceremony. Beneath it, a quote was engraved on a brass plate. "Compassion is not weakness. It is the quiet power that rebuilds the broken." Maya brushed her fingers over the words. "Your mother chose that quote?" Ethan shook his head. "You said it, actually, the first week you came back." She blinked. "I don't even remember." "I do," he said softly. "I remember every word." The door opened, and Clara entered, wheeled by her nurse. "Oh, I do love eavesdropping," she said with a grin. "Especially when my son pretends to be poetic." Ethan chuckled. "Mom, shouldn't you be resting?" "I'll rest when I'm dead," she said briskly, then looked at Maya. "How's the first batch of scholarship candidates?" "Remarkable," Maya said. "Two are single mothers. One's an older nurse trying to finish her degree, and one's a veteran who started a caregiving business after the war." Clara's eyes twinkled. "My kind of people." Ethan smiled. "That's the point. You've always believed in people like them." Clara took Maya's hand. "And so do you, my dear. You're the reason this place has heart. You gave us back our humanity when the world tried to strip it away." Maya's throat tightened. "Mrs. Calloway." "Clara," the older woman interrupted kindly. "You've earned that right." Maya smiled through her tears. "All right, Clara." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, scattering golden leaves across the driveway. The air was full of quiet sounds: workers laughing, a child from the staff quarters chasing a ball, the soft hum of life continuing. It was peace. Not the kind that forgets, but the kind that forgives. That afternoon, Ethan drove Maya into the city for a meeting with potential donors. As they passed the harbor, the water glinted like glass beneath the autumn Sunday. "You ever think about leaving Charleston?" he asked suddenly. She looked out the window. "Sometimes. But this city, it's strange. It hurts you, but it also holds you. It's home, even when it isn't." He smiled faintly. "That's exactly how I feel about it." When they stopped at a red light, Maya noticed something on a nearby billboard, an old advertisement for one of Regina's luxury skincare lines. The image was faded, peeling at the edges, her smiling face still staring down at the traffic. "She's gone," Maya said quietly, "but her shadow's still here." Ethan followed her gaze. "Let it fade. She's part of the past now." "No." She nodded, but a strange heaviness lingered in her chest. "I still wonder what became of her." Ethan sighed. "Maybe she's learning what we all had to learn. That truth doesn't destroy you unless you fight it." By the time they reached the downtown building, the tension had faded. The meeting went well, donors impressed, plans expanding. When it ended, Ethan and Maya stepped out into the late afternoon light, a soft golden haze settling over the city. They stopped by a park overlooking the river. The same park where, months ago, The press had hounded them after the video's release. Now, no one followed. The world had moved on, as it always does. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Ethan asked quietly. Maya smiled faintly. Every day. But I don't wish it different. Why not? Because the truth, as ugly as it was, brought us here. Abrai. He studied her face, the calm, the strength, the gentleness that had carried him through his darkest hours. You really believe in redemption, don't you? I believe in people, she said, even the broken ones. He looked away toward the horizon, where the last light of day shimmered over the water. Then maybe there's hope for me yet. There always was, she replied. When they returned home that evening, Clara was waiting on the terrace, a blanket over her lap, eyes bright with contentment. You two look like hope walking, she teased. Maybe we are, Ethan said, laughing. Clara gazed out at the garden, her voice soft. The house is different now. Lighter. As if it finally forgave us. Maya sat beside her, watching the twilight settle over the magnolia trees. Maybe houses remember, she said quietly. Maybe they hold on to kindness the way they hold echoes. Clara smiled knowingly. Then this one will never forget you. As night fell, the lamps along the driveway flickered on, casting pools of golden light on the wet stones. The sound of the river beyond the garden carried faintly through the wind. Inside the mansion, laughter replaced the echoes of fear. The piano, once silent, played again, and for the first time in a long while, the Calloway home was exactly what it had always pretended to be, a place of grace. The final days of autumn painted Charleston in gold and gray. Leaves drifted lazily along the streets, and the air carried that soft chill that whispers of endings and new beginnings. The Calloway mansion, once the site of scandal and heartbreak, now thrived as the beating heart of something better, the Clara Trust Foundation. Its doors, once guarded and closed, now opened every morning to caregivers, volunteers, and the quiet, steady hum of people rebuilding their lives. Maya arrived early that morning, as she always did, a thermos of coffee in one hand and her notebook in the other. She paused by the new plaque near the entrance, running her fingers over the engraved words. For those who choose kindness even when it costs them everything. Beneath it, in smaller letters, dedicated by Ethan Calloway and family. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that comes from both pride and humility. Inside, the once sterile halls were alive with motion volunteers preparing care packages, a small group of young women in training to become home nurses, and Clara herself, sitting near the window dictating letters for the foundation's donors. Her frailty remained, but so did her sharp wit and irrepressible will. Good morning, Maya, Clara greeted, her voice warm. I was just telling that young woman over there how you used to work here before all the nonsense. Maya laughed. I wouldn't call it nonsense. Neither would I, Clara said, eyes glinting. But you can't heal if you keep calling your scars by their pain. You've got to rename them. Rename them? Maya asked, amused. Yes, Clara said. Turn what hurt you into something holy. That's what we old folks do when we run out of time to be angry. Oh. Ethan entered just then, dressed simply, sleeves rolled. No longer the distant billionaire the world once feared. He was a man remade, not by loss, but by truth. Mom's giving sermons again, I see, he said, smiling. Always, Clara quipped. Maya handed him a folder. The new grant proposals. We've got requests from hospitals in Savannah and Atlanta. Ethan scanned the first page, then looked up. You've done something remarkable, Maya. She shrugged lightly. We did. One. But Ethan shook his head. You gave this place its soul. I just built the walls. Their eyes met a quiet, knowing exchange that spoke of everything they'd survived. Later that afternoon, the foundation held its first public event, a small gathering in the garden under the magnolia trees. Donors, caregivers, and families filled the space with laughter, the air rich with the smell of apple pie and warm cider. Maya stood near the stage, adjusting the microphone as Ethan prepared to speak. When he began, his voice was steady but full of quiet emotion. A year ago, this house was a place of silence. It had walls, but no heart. Then someone came along and reminded us that kindness isn't an act, it's a choice you make when no one's watching. The Clara Trust exists because of that reminder. and because of one woman's courage when everyone else chose fear. The audience turned toward Maya, and she felt her cheeks warm under their applause. Clara smiled proudly from her chair, eyes glistening. Ethan continued. My mother taught me that truth, once spoken, doesn't just expose darkness, it plants light. That light is what you see here today. He paused, glancing at Maya. And I intend to protect it for as long as I live. The applause was gentle, heartfelt, the kind that lingers long after it fades. As the sun dipped low, Maya walked through the garden, her footsteps crunching softly over fallen leaves. The air smelled like rain again. She looked back at the house, the soft glow of lamps, the laughter drifting out through open windows, and thought of how far they had all come. Ethan joined her a few moments later, 2 mugs of cider in his hands. He offered her one. You disappear every time people start thanking you. He teased. I'm better at quiet things, she said with a smile. Quiet things built this, he said, gesturing toward the mansion. Don't underestimate them. Oh. They stood in companionable silence for a while, watching the river shimmer in the distance. Do you ever think about her? Maya asked finally. Regina? Ethan's expression sobered. Sometimes. Not with hate, though. I just hope she found a place to face herself. She will, Maya said softly. Truth always catches up. It's patient. He looked at her, the corners of his mouth lifting. You make everything sound like scripture. Maybe that's what survival is, she said quietly. Learning how to turn pain into prayer. A soft breeze swept through the magnolia trees, scattering petals across the grass. One landed on Maya's sleeve. She brushed it off gently, smiling to herself. I used to think storms were punishment, Ethan said after a moment. Now I think they're reminders of what still stands after the rain. Maya nodded. Then I guess we're what's left standing. He watched her, the glow of twilight softening his features. You know, I once thought redemption came from confession. Turns out, it comes from company. Company? The right kind, he said, eyes warm. The kind that holds you accountable and still stays. Maya looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. Then I guess I'll stay a while longer. Good, he said simply. The church bells began to ring in the distance, low and resonant. Clara's laughter floated faintly from the terrace, blending with the rustle of leaves and the hum of life returning. As the light faded, the mansion stood illuminated not by wealth or grandeur, but by the quiet resilience of those who had refused to give up on truth. Maya turned toward Ethan and said softly, You can rebuild houses and fortunes, Ethan, but what really matters is rebuilding faith in each other. He smiled. Then we've done something worth keeping. The last of the day's light slipped beneath the horizon, painting the world in shades of silver and blue. And there, beneath the magnolia trees, 2 people stood side by side, not master and servant, not sinner and saint, but survivors of the same storm. Above them, the wind whispered through the branches like a benediction. The house remembers kindness. And for the first time, peace wasn't a dream. It was home. True strength isn't found in power, wealth, or control. It lives quietly in compassion, integrity, and courage. Maya's kindness in the face of cruelty reminds us that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it speaks in calm, steady truth. Ethan's redemption shows that it's never too late to choose what's right, and Clara's grace proves that forgiveness can heal wounds deeper than time. In the end, the story teaches us that storms don't destroy what's real, they reveal it.